evening, Hong Kong University students have used the latest issue of their undergrad magazine to hit back at Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying for attacking them in his policy address. The publication warns that Hong Kong is facing extermination and calls for a thorough revolution against communism. ATV's Raymond Young reports.
Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying angered Hong Kong University Student Union by using his policy address earlier this month to accuse them of publishing fallacies to spread ideas about independence for Hong Kong. The students are now hitting back with the latest issue of their undergrad magazine published today, comparing his decision to name and shame them with the tactics used by China's Mao Zedong during the Cultural Revolution. It also slammed the chief executive for provoking young people instead of mending fences and understanding their grievances highlighted during last year's protests. The magazine went further to declare that Hong Kong is facing extermination as the one country, two systems policy has become incurable. It called for a thorough revolution against communism to avoid the risk of becoming slaves. The government issued a response, stressing the chief executive's responsibility to uphold China's national unity and territorial integrity. Young protesters are looking to air their grievances again by joining a pro-democracy rally planned for Sunday. The Civil Human Rights Front is expecting 50,000 to turn up for the march from Victoria Park to Chater Garden. But the organizers are still trying to fulfill a condition imposed by police that 100 marshals should be present during the rally to maintain order. Police did not confirm if the front will be prosecuted for failing to meet the requirement.
In case they do not have sufficient marshals, it depends on the circumstances. For example, how many they're shutting off, what are their responsibility of those marshals supposed to be, and we'll liaise with the organizers, see how those problems can be mediated.
The chief executive was far away from all the fuss today, meeting Guangdong Party chief Hu Chunhua for trade talks.
The MTRC has been criticized by a panel appointed to look into the delay in the construction of the high-speed railway to Guangzhou. According to the three-member group, the railway operator is incapable of handling the multi-billion-dollar project. The MTRC's reputation was hammered last year when it was revealed that the controversial express rail link to Shenzhen and Guangzhou would be delayed by 2 years. Following the shock announcement amid allegations of a cover-up, the government appointed a three-member panel to look into the fiasco which made the project more costly. In its highly critical report released today, the panel said the MTRC is incapable of handling such a project which is both massive and complex. It also slammed the MTRC for setting unrealistic timelines and said this could have been avoided by conducting suitable risk assessments. The report also criticized the railway for keeping the government in the dark about the construction delay. The link will now be completed in 2017, with the costs ballooning to $71.5 billion, an increase of $6.5 billion from its original budget. The panel suggested improvements, including a management overhaul to deal with complex projects. The supply of private housing has hit an 8-year high, with the number of completed flats rising to 15,700, up almost 90% from 2013. ATV's An Chang reports.
The private property sector is showing an encouraging trend, according to the latest figures released by the Transport and Housing Bureau today. The number of private flats under construction rose 23%, from 14,100 units in 2013 to 17,300 last year, the highest since 2012 and second highest in the past 10 years. Some 3,400 flats were started in the last quarter, 100 fewer than the number for the same period in 2013, but it was still more than double the amount in the third quarter. More significantly, the number of completed flats rose 89%, from 8,300 in 2013 to 15,700 last year, the highest since 2006. The fourth quarter showed a significant drop, with 3,500 units built, 25% down from 4,700 in the third quarter. There are still 6,000 completed units left unsold, which will be factored in the government's estimation that the supply of private homes for the next 3 to 4 years will rise to 74,000. Financial Services Secretary Chan Ka-keung said government efforts to increase supply are bearing fruit. While market watchers see an easing of the housing shortage, property prices are still soaring and out of reach for most Hong Kong residents. A public housing flat measuring 147 square feet in Fanling's Wah-ming estate was sold recently for a record $1.7 million. That's more than $11,000 per square foot. Wong Kun of the Federation of Public Housing Estates said he found it incomprehensible. When asked whether the government would introduce more measures to curb speculation and ease surging prices, especially for small flats, Chan would only say the situation is being monitored, but he warned home buyers to consider the risks. Ann Chang, ATV News.
Justice Minister Rimsky-Yuen has defended the length of time it's taking the government to decide whether former Chief Executive Donald Tsang should be prosecuted for improper conduct in office. Yuen is insisting it's a genuinely complicated case. Director of Public Prosecutions Keith Yeung told lawmakers on Monday that the ICAC had completed its investigation into former Chief Executive Donald Tsang, and the Justice Department was studying the report. There's been widespread concern about why it's taking so long to decide whether Tsang should be prosecuted for improper conduct in office. The anti-graft agency began investigating him 3 years ago, acting on complaints that Tsang had accepted favors from his tycoon friends and spent taxpayers' money lavishly during his trips overseas as chief executive. But Justice Secretary Rimsky-Yuen told ATV's Newsline there's no question of deliberately delaying the case because of how sensitive it is. He insisted the government is handling it sincerely and fairly, but it's genuinely taking time.
You cannot simply judge the complexity of the case by reading what you can see from the public media. In fact, it would not be fair to the colleagues of the ICAC. You do not know the tasks that they face and the challenges that they have to tackle. So it would not be fair to jump to the conclusion of whether there is or there is no delay.
But the Justice Minister refused to reveal exactly when his office received the ICAC's investigation report, which would indicate whether the government has really been sitting on it.
I mean, I can understand people who are not involved would say, well, how come it takes, say, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? But if you are involved in the process, and if you are tasked to go through all those documents, perhaps you will say, can I have more time?
Yuen cited the corruption trial of former Chief Secretary Raphael Hui, a friend of Donald Tsang's, as proof that complicated cases take time, but justice is served in the end. You can watch the full Newsline interview on Sunday night at 8 here on ATV World. A businessman who admitted stealing $161,500 when cash spilled out of a security van on Christmas Eve has been jailed for 5 months. Loi Lun Yong told Eastern Court that he picked up the money on Gloucester Road. He then took a taxi, and the cab driver tipped off police, who found the money under the bed in his Kowloon Bay flat. Yesterday, an elderly cleaner was given a suspended jail term for picking up $8,000 in the cash-grabbing frenzy. A Sha Tin magistrate has refused to give ATV more time to respond to 76 summonses against the company and its executive director for failing to pay staff wages on time. The station was told to be ready to face the music on the 13th of February. ATV Executive Director Ip Ka Po was mobbed by the media as he arrived at the Sha Tin Magistracy this morning. Supporters and critics of the station made their voices heard as well. Ip was in court today to answer 34 summonses initiated by the Labor Department against himself and ATV, represented by News Chief Lau Lan Chung, for failing to pay staff salaries on time in July and September. ATV's lawyers asked for the case to be delayed until the 27th of February, citing the need for more time to study the case. Labor Department representatives did not oppose the application, adding that they wanted the case to be combined with 42 more summonses they mailed to ATV this week over its late payment of November wages. However, Principal Magistrate Andrew Ma questioned why ATV needs up to 4 weeks to review such simple procedures. He also said it was a waste of time for prosecutors to mail the summonses and ordered them to be served to Ip and Lau in person right away. Ma insisted the case could not be delayed in the interest of justice and decided the combined 76 summonses will be heard together on the 13th. According to the employment ordinance, employers face up to 3 years in jail and a $350,000 fine for late pay offenses. A controversy has erupted in the U.S. after Senator John McCain branded anti-war protesters as low-life scum after they demanded that a former Secretary of State be tried for war crimes. ATV's Joyce Wu reports.
He won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1973, but Henry Kissinger has not convinced members of Code Pink, an anti-war group, that he deserved the prestigious award. Kissinger, along with fellow former Secretaries of State George Shultz and Madeleine Albright, was invited by the Senate Armed Forces Committee to give their opinions on a number of issues. But the protesters reminded Kissinger, now 91, of the countries that suffered because of U.S. policy.
In the name of the people of Chile, in the name of the people of Vietnam, in the name of the people of East Timor, in the name of the people of Cambodia, in the name of the people of Laos.
Millions of people were killed in Indochina when U.S. troops were deployed in South Vietnam in the 1960s and 70s to stop the country being reunited under communism, while in Chile the U.S. helped overthrow an elected leftist president in 1973. The anti-Kissinger chants proved too much for panel chairman John McCain, who was a prisoner of war in North Vietnam after his plane was shot down while bombing Hanoi in 1967.
And I have never seen anything as disgraceful and outrageous and despicable as the last demonstration that just took place. Get out of here, you low-life scum.
Police took away the protesters, who said they were trying to make a citizen's arrest of Kissinger. McCain apologized to the former top diplomat and said he had served the U.S. with great honor and distinction.
Sports news starting with tennis. Top seed Novak Djokovic has beaten defending champion Stanislas Wawrinka to reach the final of the Australian Open in Melbourne. The first